The first snow of December had fallen heavy across northern Ontario, turning the forests into a sea of white silence. The world seemed asleep under a blanket of ice. Somewhere beyond the pines, a frozen lake shimmered faintly beneath the gray sky, its surface hard and glassy like frozen steel. Liam Bennett, a 32-year-old journalist from Toronto, had been fighting writer's block for months. He had made his name writing about strange, forgotten legends of Canada, stories of haunted towns, mysterious disappearances, and unexplainable phenomena. But now, his inspiration had vanished. His editor had warned him, "One more dead-end article and you're done, Bennett." Then, out of nowhere, came the letter. It arrived without a stamp or address, slipped under his apartment door. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with a dark red wax emblem, a letter M encircled by frost-like markings. Inside, written in elegant old-fashioned handwriting, were only a few words. Greater than, meet me at the cabin by the frozen lake. I have a story that will change your life forever. E. Morgan. Liam stared at the name. E. Morgan. The name tugged at something deep in his memory. He opened his laptop and began searching. Within minutes, he found it, an article from 1990 titled, "The Morgan Family Tragedy." 30 years ago, Edward Morgan, a respected scientist, had owned a research cabin near a small town called Maplewood. He had been studying thermal anomalies in the region's lakes, bodies of water that froze faster than science could explain. But one winter night, the cabin had burned down, killing Morgan's wife and daughter. Edward himself disappeared shortly after, never to be seen again. Locals claimed the lake was cursed. Liam leaned back in his chair. A ghost story, maybe that's what this was. A hoax. But the words, "change your life forever," echoed in his mind. For a man desperate for a breakthrough story, curiosity was stronger than reason. The next morning, he packed his recorder, notebook, camera, and a thermos of coffee, then set off toward Maplewood. The drive was long and silent, the highway lined with endless snow-covered trees. The farther north he went, the weaker his phone signal became until it disappeared completely. By late evening, the GPS showed nothing but a white void on the screen. A small, hand-painted wooden sign by the roadside read, "Maplewood Lake 3 kilometers." He turned onto a narrow road that twisted through dense pine forest. Snow flurries danced in the headlights like white moths. Finally, the trees opened to reveal the lake, vast, silver, and utterly still. At its edge stood the cabin. It was smaller than he'd imagined, half buried in snow, its roof sagging under the weight of ice. The wooden boards were dark and splintered, and the windows were frosted over like blind eyes. There was no sign of life. No footprints. No smoke. Only silence. Liam parked the car and stepped out. The air was sharp and bitter, biting at his skin. His boots crunched on the frozen ground as he approached the cabin door. It was unlocked. The hinges groaned as he pushed it open. Inside, the smell of burnt wood and cold air hit him instantly. Dust floated in the beam of his flashlight. The walls were blackened with old smoke stains. Yet, oddly, the place didn't feel entirely abandoned. A wooden table stood in the center of the room, covered in cobwebs and snowflakes that had blown in through a cracked window. On it sat a single candle, freshly lit, its flame trembling as if disturbed by his arrival. Next to it lay an old photograph. Liam brushed off the dust. It showed a smiling family, a man, a woman, and a young girl standing by the very same cabin. The man's eyes seemed to follow him. He whispered to himself, "Edward Morgan." Then he noticed something else, footprints in the snow leading out of the cabin, fresh and deep, heading toward the lake. Liam stepped back outside, the wind whistling faintly through the trees. He followed the footprints across the frozen surface. The ice beneath him groaned and creaked with every step. The tracks went about 20 meters before stopping abruptly, as if the person had vanished into thin air. He shone his flashlight around. Nothing but darkness and the soft hiss of falling snow. And then, a whisper. Soft, close, and cold as the wind itself. "Greater than, you shouldn't have come here, Liam." He spun around, his flashlight trembling in his hand. There was no one there. Only his own footprints leading back to the cabin, and the faint reflection of his breath fogging up the air above the ice. The voice had sounded so close, almost inside his head. As he turned back toward the cabin, he thought he saw movement in one of its frosted windows. A shadow. A face, maybe. Watching. He quickened his pace, nearly slipping as he reached solid ground again. When he looked back at the lake, the footprints he had followed were gone, erased by the snow as if they had never existed. And then, the candle inside the cabin flickered out. The forest went completely silent. Liam Bennett was no longer sure if he had come for a story, or if he had just walked into one. The night had grown darker, and the snow outside now fell in thick, swirling sheets. The cabin groaned softly in the wind, its wooden frame creaking like an old ship lost at sea. Liam sat near the cold fireplace, rubbing his hands together for warmth. The candle he had found earlier was almost finished, its tiny flame flickering weakly. He still couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, had been watching him from the lake. He thought about leaving, but his curiosity refused to let go. He had come too far. There had to be a reason for that letter, for the footprints that vanished, for the voice that called his name. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from behind the old bookcase against the wall, a thump, like something falling. Liam grabbed his flashlight and slowly moved closer. When he pulled one of the shelves aside, a small wooden panel came loose, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked and blackened at the edges. The initials EM were faintly visible on the front. His pulse quickened. He sat back down at the table and opened it. The pages were filled with neat, handwritten notes dated between 1987 and 1989. At first, the entries seemed harmless, records of scientific observations about the lake's unusual freezing patterns. Edward Morgan had been studying why the water froze instantly at night, far beyond normal physics. He mentioned magnetic activity, temperature anomalies, and the possibility of energy pockets beneath the lake bed. But as Liam read further, the tone changed. Greater than, something is under the ice. At first, I thought it was movement of water, but it looks back. Voices whisper when I'm near the shore. They sound like my wife. Like my daughter. The ice preserves more than water. It preserves time. Liam felt a chill crawl up his spine. The last few pages were nearly unreadable, smeared with soot and frozen stains. The handwriting had grown erratic, desperate. Greater than, the lake isn't natural. It calls to those who listen. The dead are not gone, they are waiting. If anyone finds this, don't let them wake. The final line ended abruptly, the ink dragging across the page. Just then, a knock echoed through the cabin. Slow. Heavy. Knock. 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 Liam froze. His breath came in sharp bursts. Who's there? He shouted, forcing confidence into his trembling voice. After a pause, a man's voice replied from outside. Mr. Bennett. This is Constable Rayner. We got a report someone came up here. The cabin's unsafe. Please open the door. Liam felt instant relief. A police officer, it made sense. Maybe locals had seen his car. He quickly unlocked the door and pulled it open. But the porch was empty. Only the wind howled back. The snow was untouched. No footprints. No sign of anyone. And then, from the lake, came a low creaking sound. He turned his flashlight toward the ice. Beneath the frozen surface, something pale moved. A shape. A face. Edward Morgan's face, frozen in the ice, staring straight at him. For a long moment, Liam stood frozen, staring at the face beneath the ice. It was unmistakable, the same face from the photograph in the cabin. Edward Morgan. But his expression wasn't peaceful. His eyes were wide open, mouth twisted in silent terror. Frost had trapped him mid-scream, as though the lake itself had swallowed him alive. Liam stumbled backward, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The beam darted across the frozen surface, revealing more pale shapes beneath. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all staring upward from beneath the glassy ice, their bodies suspended like forgotten memories. Panic surged through his veins. He turned to run, slipping and sliding across the slick surface, until he finally reached the cabin's porch. He slammed the door shut and pressed his back against it, chest heaving. What is happening here? He whispered. This can't be real. His eyes darted around the room. The journal still lay open on the table, its pages fluttering in the icy draft. He grabbed it and flipped toward the end, scanning the final entries again. Greater than, the lake keeps them. The ice remembers. The voices are not ghosts. They are echoes, fragments trapped between the layers of time. It wants a new keeper. The words bled together as his vision blurred. Suddenly, the candle flickered and went out. The cabin plunged into darkness. Only the faint moonlight filtered through the frosted windows. Then, footsteps. Slow, steady, deliberate. Outside. Circling the cabin. Liam held his breath. He could hear the crunch of snow, closer, and closer still. Then silence. His hands shook as he reached for his flashlight. He aimed it at the window, and froze. A figure stood there, just beyond the glass. Tall. Motionless. Wrapped in a heavy coat and hood. Snow clung to its shoulders. "Who are you?" Liam shouted, voice cracking. The figure didn't move. Then slowly, very slowly, it turned its head toward him. Beneath the hood, the pale, lifeless face of Edward Morgan stared back, the same one he'd seen beneath the ice. Liam stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. "No, you're dead." The door handle began to turn. He bolted for the back exit, kicking it open, snow swirling around him like ghosts. The cold air bit his face as he sprinted toward the lake. His boots crunched loudly, breath-forming clouds in the air. Behind him, he heard the creak of footsteps following, not running, just walking. Calm. Unhurried. He reached the frozen lake again, chest heaving, light sweeping across the vast icy surface. The shapes beneath the ice seemed to shift now, their faces turning, eyes following him. Then came the voice. Low, echoing across the wind. Greater than, "You shouldn't have come here, Liam." He spun around. Edward Morgan was standing just a few feet away. The man's skin looked translucent, veins visible beneath the surface like frozen rivers. His eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting the moonlight. "What do you want?" Liam cried. Morgan tilted his head. "I wanted to stop it. But the lake doesn't let go. It keeps what it needs." "What does that mean?" "The lake is alive," Morgan whispered. "It feeds on memory. On stories. On those who come looking for truth." Liam stepped back. The ice beneath his feet groaned. Cracks spread like lightning. "Don't fight it," Morgan said, voice hollow. "It's already chosen." The ice gave way with a deafening crack. Liam plunged into the freezing water, the shock knocking the air from his lungs. The cold was unbearable, sharp as knives, cutting through every nerve. He tried to swim up, but hands, cold, pale hands, reached out from below, pulling him deeper. He screamed, bubbles rising and freezing midair. Beneath him, faces of the trapped souls surrounded him, their mouths moving in silent whispers. "Greater than, join us, Liam, stay." His limbs grew numb. Darkness closed in. And then, silence. The next morning, the blizzard had cleared. The lake gleamed quietly beneath the pale dawn. A rescue team from Maplewood found Liam's car parked by the forest road, doors unlocked, engine dead. His footprints led to the frozen lake, and stopped at the edge, just like the others before him. Inside the cabin, everything was untouched, except for one thing. On the wooden table lay Edward Morgan's old journal, open to a new page that hadn't been there before. The ink was still wet. Greater than, the lake has chosen another. As the wind howled softly across the ice, a faint shadow appeared beneath the frozen surface, the shape of a man reaching upward, eyes wide open, forever trapped beneath the lake's shimmering glass.